the Go Berserk with Email podcast with Navy nuclear engineer turned email software developer, Troy Broussard. So calm.
I'm pissed off, but I'm telling this because I am teaching you how to think differently and how to test differently.
So patient.
And Ben, that's put $500,000 into this company too, is being told that nobody can find the goddamn bug.
So charitable.
I'm going to start paying bounties every time somebody finds a bug. We're going to deduct $10 for that week.
So trusting.
Do not assume that anything works. Assume that nothing works.
And so sweet, it makes sugar taste just like salt.
I want to play into the sexiness of marketing automation, but I also want to slap the complexity of it.
The Go Berserk with Email podcast begins now.
So, interesting question. I want to get your take on this, Troy. There was this question posted. I don't know where it was. It was online. And it's, how long does it take you to create an email? And they're talking about design, copy, strategy, etc. And this guy comments, listen to this, because I know we got a lot of email players out there. By myself, it used to take me 4 hours to design an email. But ever since I systemized the whole process, it takes me about an hour, maybe an hour and a half sometimes to design an email. Is that what we're supposed to be? I'm doing this wrong, aren't I?
We need to send this guy back to the drawing board. If that's a system, then we need to re-architect that baby and start over. Look, 4 hours to write an email. Like, there's two components to this, man. Where to even start? There's two major things to talk about here. First of all, okay, you've got to look at the tech side of writing an email. So when he talks about composing it and designing it and all of that and strategizing for it, there's a lot to unpack there that this guy is just making this way harder than it needs to be. All right. So, and a lot of the stuff we've talked about in other episodes in the podcast. So, just go back and browse through them. But, one of the things is separating content creation from brainstorming, right? So this is the first part. So he's trying to create the strategy for the email at the same time he's writing the email. That is the most ineffective thing you can possibly do. From just a brain neurology analysis, just the way our brains work, we have right brain, left brain activities, and composing and the email itself, the technical side, is very different than the creative side of brainstorming what to write about. So he's setting himself up for failure right there, to just waste a whole lot of friggin' time. Like, when you sit down and you're like, okay, what am I going to write about? That's not going to work. You got to have a list. Like, what did we do when we started this podcast? We went to our list, we went to our ideas, we went back to the things that we've gone through, and boom, boom, let's grab one and let's go. This is the way you write. You do the brainstorming separate from the actual writing. So that's the first big flaw. And it's so crazy. Like, I can just sit here and microanalyze and break it down just on that little 2-sentence, response from the guy, because I can just see the matrix of all the screw ups that he's doing. So first of all, I can tell you that. Second of all, he talks about image and design and all of that. Okay. All right. Don't get me started on the whole image.
Right? Yeah. Berserker Mail Special.
Oh my God.
Get images. I need images.
Forget the friggin' images. Make your life easy. Save an hour of farting around trying to find an image. And by the way, here's a whole nother rant on images. Okay. There are all kinds of charlatan attorneys out there. Okay. We know this to be true. They don't have a bad reputation for no reason. They've earned it. Okay. My mom, in her 80s, we had this guy. She had inherited a gas station from my grandfather that was built in like the 40s. Okay. An old Texaco gas station in California. And there was this charlatan attorney that represented a handicapped gentleman that would go around and file false claims on people for handicap accessibility to their commercial premises. So there's all kinds of laws regarding handicap accessible, but there are exceptions to those laws. And when you have a very old property that's grandfathered in between certain time periods, or a property that would require significant modification and it doesn't make sense, or there's exceptions, right? And my mom had a legitimate exception for this particular gas station. It would have required relocating the whole design of the station where it was on the premises. You would have had to tear down the building, and there was just no way to do it. And it was grandfathered in. The law didn't apply, right? But this is the People's Republic of California, so you know how that goes. So this guy in a wheelchair, he goes around and he's got a scam. And his whole scam, and it's insulting to people that are legitimately suffering through this. And he's deluding himself into telling himself he's doing the industry a favor, right? Like, I can just hear his argument that, oh, I'm helping people by moving. No, you're not. You're putting small businesses out of business, because this is what the guy did. He would go around knowing that they had a legal exception, and he would try to use the facilities, and then he would take pictures and document that it wasn't up to the standards for handicap accessible, which everybody knew they had an exception, right? It was a grandfathered in exception. There wasn't a necessity for it. So he would document all that. Then he would use an attorney to file suit. And what he would do is he had no chance of winning. None, because the law was against him. The law was that you didn't need these things, right, for this particular exclusionary reason. And yet what would happen is that the whole game that the attorney played was they would ask for an amount that was like a nuisance amount, so that you would pay them to go away, because you were going to lose more money than that in court costs to fight it. You would ultimately win, but you would have to pay more in court costs, penalties, fees, and wasted time and hiring an attorney and everything else to defend yourself against a bogus claim, that they would win by default. People would just pay him off to get the guy out of his hair, right? Now, karma has a way of sorting these things out, because he took all of his winnings. By the way, my brothers and I did some research on him and found out later, because my mom had to just pay the guy off. She had to pay him like $20,000 or whatever. Wow. To just get her way out of this, right? And I know this is a long story, but I am coming back to a point with it. So karma does have a way of working itself out for this, because my brothers and I researched this guy, and he had done this all up and down the West Coast. He stayed within California, because California courts are very friendly to this. So even though it wasn't a law, they'll still bend the law in the favor. So they are very friendly to this cause. And so he stayed within California, and he had like 70 different lawsuits that he had filed over the course of 3 or 4 years, just going up and down the coast, finding mom and pop restaurants, mom and pop businesses, small stuff that couldn't afford and had legal exclusions, right? And he would just target them. Well, then he made so much money doing this that he bought himself a private plane.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so he bought a private plane. It wasn't, like a jet or anything, but it was a $250,000 private plane. And, he had somebody that he got his pilot's license, and he had the plane, the pedals modified and stuff so that he could fly it without his legs, just using his arms. And because he was a paraplegic, so he couldn't use his legs on the pedals, but they had it all modified, and he flew around all over the place in this plane. So now he's like such an efficient scammer that he flies everywhere to save himself time so that he can go scam somebody out of money, right?
Nice. Gas
is expensive in those planes, damn it. Got to make money, Jonathan. So long story short, karma has a way of working itself out. And he ended up killing himself in an airplane crash, because he was not nearly as gifted at flying as he was about scamming the legal system through his false claims everywhere. But my point is that there are attorneys looking for these loopholes all over. And one of the biggest scams out there going on right now is, and I'm not going to use their name because I don't want to get into any kind of libel or anything, and I don't want to deal with that drama. But there's some stock image places out here that are going after everybody they possibly can with AI. And they're using AI to find if you've ever used an image anywhere. And most of the time, you're not even in violation. Sometimes you are. But even if you are, what they go after is absolutely ridiculous. Like, let's say the cost of the image was $370 to buy the image. They'll go out and drum up some, $3,000 fees or $5,000 fees, and drum up court costs and drum up attorney's fees and all this. And it's just a money-making
shakedown.
scam. Yeah, it's just a shakedown that attorneys are orchestrating around image rights, when that's not what the laws were supposed to be. They were supposed to be for people really abusing them, not somebody that made an honest mistake or had a misuse of a license on one image or something, and now is getting shaken down for $3,000 on something that only cost $170 or $100 or whatever, right? Just complete blatant shakedown. So, this I'm throwing into the fire as yet another reason why doing images is just not very smart. Okay, it really isn't. Unless you are creating the images yourself, or you have a full-time designer on your staff that you are paying. And when I say that, man, listen carefully to the words that come out of my mouth. I'm not saying that you've got an outsourcer that you paid to do it, because all they did is go steal it from somewhere because you're a cheap bastard paying them $3 an hour somewhere, right? Like, come on. I mean, don't play that game with me. All right. Don't play that game with me. All right. If you're going to have contracted people, pay them well, treat them well. I pay all of my outsourced, labor like 2 to 3 times what the average is in their nation, because I want loyalty and I want quality, right? I'm not trying to be cheap. Yes, you can save money by going overseas, but don't be cheap, and don't insult people's integrity and expect them to, jump to the moon and fly to the moon for you and pay them $3. Like, I just hate that mentality, right? But you have got to have somebody creating your own images if you're going to use images. If you put an image on your website, if you just go up to Google and search, and then you modify it and you think you're so clever and you go and add some stuff to it, or do something to dress it up a little bit in Photoshop or Canva or whatever the hell you use, that you don't have rights for that. You don't have permission for that. And AI is getting very smart about finding that stuff out. And you're going to cause yourself a lot of legal trouble with images from a whole different perspective. We're not even talking about, I'm not even going there, Jonathan, with the whole debate on deliverability and everything else. I'm telling you, from a legal cover your ass standpoint, images are really dicey unless you are creating them yourself. Even if you license them, a lot of times the licensing is confusing and you may not have the permissions that you think you have. You may think that you can use it, but you bought a license for personal use and you're using it in a business, and therefore you need a commercial license and you're not covered. Lots of hangups here. Okay. So now let's get back to this guy. So, here he is. He's doing the wrong thing by trying to brainstorm and write at the same time. That's the first thing. The second thing is he's going crazy with images. 4 hours, man. 4 hours. Dude, I've written an entire 20,000 word book in 4 hours. Okay. I mean, seriously, go out on a long walk and just start recording. I can lay down an entire book in a day. 4 hours is more of a booklet, not a full book, but I've written 20, 35,000 word books in, 4, 6, 8 hours of time. 4 hours to write an email? My God, man, I hope you're, selling something that pays for the next space launch or something, because if you're not making a lot of money and you're spending 4 hours in email, you're not going to be successful in this business. It is about speed. Now,
I thought that you were just going to say that it's clear that he wasn't using our email software.
Well, that's the next part of it.
I thought that was, I mean, it's obvious. All the other software out there, I've had to deal with it too. Is like, it takes 4 hours to get through the clicks just to send that damn email.
Yeah. And that's where I come to the tech. So there's the bad approach of brainstorming and writing on the same day. That's a no-no. Now there's the design approach of choosing to use images in your emails. And that just creates a lot of wasted time and effort for negligible benefit whatsoever, and adds hours to the process. Then, even if you're going to go that route, now you have the technological aspect of it. As soon as you go to putting images in an email, the tech for writing that email just is like 4x more complicated, right? You get people that want to do the drag and drop multi-column stuff. They want a word wrap around the image. They've got to do the layout. They've got to resize the image to make it fit down to the small kilobit range that is acceptable for deliverability. There's all of these things that and it's just a endless array of wasted time and effort. And so it's funny to me because his conclusion at the end is he's like patting himself on the back that he got it down to an hour or only an hour and a half sometimes. Seriously, dude? Like, if you're spending more than 10 minutes writing your email, either A, you need to get some typing skills and figure out, where the ASDF is on the keyboard, or you really need to refine that system differently. If you focus on getting content out there and getting it faster, you're going to get more of it done. You're going to enjoy it. And you're not going to put yourself into this torturous, arduous process of turning an email into a friggin' book. Are you kidding me? 4 hours, Jonathan.
The fiasco, man. I don't know how anybody can do it. But that's what I like about Berserker Mail is it's Spartan, right? It's just get in there, attack with words and get the hell out.
Yeah, and we don't try to do the things that all the other platforms try to do. Like, I don't need to have all of the fancy formatting, grammar, all the stuff that everybody's trying to bolt into their email platform and turning it into a word processor. No, just use your word processor, copy, paste, send, done. All right. Like, it's so much faster. It's so much easier. I do all of my email writing offline. Half of it I either write audibly or the other half I write in Pages on the Mac and then just copy paste in and done. Yeah. And you can set up your templates. You can set up your formatting, all of that stuff inside of a word processor that's meant for that. And just rich text copy paste and one button send, and you're ready to go. Like, email should be about speed and natural communication. It shouldn't be about contrived 4-hour strategy sessions. All right. It's just not going to happen, man.
So, Troy, what do you have coming up for us next time?
So I'm going to tackle a topic that I think is it's interesting. It comes from a discussion with Ben Settle and I the other day. And Ben and I and John Wood were all kind of talking about email and why people are so afraid of sending email. So we're going to talk about the top 3 reasons that I have found that people just simply don't send email. And then we're going to break it down, Jonathan, excuse or valid reason, right? Yeah. We're going to call it out.
Man, can't wait. That is a wrap for another Go Berserk with Email show. We will be back in your earbuds next time.
To get a free Berserker Mail test drive with no credit card required, go to startmytestdrive.com. From there, you can play around inside the platform without pressure. Load up emails and campaigns to see how simple the interface is, and get comfy with everything before deciding to join. That's startmytestdrive.com.
This is the podcastfactory.com.